Okay, everyone. Good morning. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Erin Turbot, the Public Information Officer with the Wyoming Department of Workforce Services, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to today's virtual training series, Safety First Wyoming, Empowering Employers to Build Safer Workplaces. This series was created based on your feedback, and we're excited to bring you topics that matter most to you. Be sure to check out our website at dws.wyo.gov/VTS. One of my team will drop that link in the chat for you for upcoming sessions, registration, and recordings of past events. This session is being recorded, and all materials will be available on our site within a few days. If you have questions during the presentation, just pop them into chat and we will answer them at the end of the hour. So safety doesn't just happen. It takes the right tools and support. And the good news is you don't have to do it alone. Today, we're going to walk through the many resources DWS offers to help employers, from OSHA training and on-site consultations to grants and funding opportunities that can make safety improvements more affordable. We'll talk about building a strong safety culture, using data to make smart decisions, and how different industries across Wyoming are leading the way with new ideas and innovations. We'll also tackle common misconceptions, new technologies, and lessons learned from real incidents right here in our state. Whether you're a small business or a large operation, just starting out or looking to strengthen what you already have, this session will give you practical tools and fresh ideas to put safety first, because a safer workplace is a stronger workplace. Do keep your questions very general, as we cannot address specific situations due to potential privacy concerns. However, if you do have other questions, we will provide contact information at the end. Now let's dive in. Please join me in welcoming today's panel speakers. We have Christian Graham, the OSHA Program Manager, Brad Westby, OSHA Consultation Supervisor, Ricardo Lind Gonzalez, Risk Management Manager, Adam Powell, Workers' Compensation Safety and Risk Supervisor, Don Dorn, Deputy Mine Inspector, and today's moderator for our very own Department of Workforce Services Deputy Director, Jason Wolf. Jason, please take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Erin. Thank you, panel members, and those joining us for this series. I'll start out with our questions here. So Christian and Brad, can you give us an overview of the safety-related resources and programs offered by the Wyoming Department of Workforce Services, including things like our OSHA Roadshow?
Oh, yes, definitely. So this is Christian. Good morning, Jason. Good morning, Erin. Good morning, everybody. So I'd like to start off to talk about our resources. So our safety-related resources include consultation, compliance assistance. They provide safety and health technical assistance at no charge to private and public sector employers upon request. Our consultants and compliance assistance specialists complete health and safety visits, which include an audit of your facility where hazards are identified, but there is no fine or penalty that comes along with that. It's a total free service to the employer to help you shore up your safety needs. Your injury and illness records are reviewed to identify any problem areas and offer corrective measures. We also conduct on-the-spot informal training that can be given to the employees or supervisors when needed on safety and health issues. We also complete a review of your health and safety programs during the visit, or it can be done by itself if requested. So the programs we administer come in the form of recognition programs. We have the Employer Volunteer Temporary Assistance Program, which we refer to as EVTAP, the Safety and Health Achievement Recognition Program, which we refer to as SHARP program, and the Voluntary Protection Program, which is the VPP program. So I'd like to turn that over to Brad to explain a little more in depth on those programs and any other assistance that we offer.
Thanks, Christian. As it relates to our prestige programs that Christian just recognized, those are specific to Wyoming. We have about 35 employers right now in the SHARP program, about 15 that are in the FTAP program, and we are currently standing at 4 with the Voluntary Protection Program. There are some benefits in being in these programs. Sometimes the federal offices will mandate that we go out and conduct visits in specific industries. And if you are part of the SHARP or the FTAP program, you actually are excluded from those types of visits. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Jason. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Thanks, Christian. Okay, next question for Brad and Rico. What types of training or outreach does the Department of Workforce Services offer to help businesses stay compliant?
So when we conduct our visits, consultants will do training on hazard identification, how best to provide interim protection to their employees, and provide assistance on how best to abate any of the hazards that we identify during the visit. After the visit is conducted, consultants follow up with employers and their employees on any additional questions that they may have related to safety and health topics.
Very good. Thanks, Brad. Rico?
Thanks, Jason, and good morning, everyone. So the risk management team conducts a monthly outreach to employers, whether they're not in good standing for discount revocations, but we also reach out to employers in regards to their experience modification rating, also known as an EMR, if it's greater than a 1, or employers with a large loss claim history. But discount revocations are generally centered around compliance due to whether it's missing payroll reports or delinquent premiums. But the EMR-based outreach is to educate employers on workers' compensation, get them enrolled in discounts that are designed to help create and improve the safety culture within their company.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to our next question. Brad, can you, if any businesses is just starting out, where should they go first to access the most essential safety information and support?
Thanks, Jason. Businesses should definitely fill out the consultation application request form and schedule a visit with one of our consultants. On-site visits can assist any business, newer or older, to provide a safe work environment for their employees. Everything that the consultation team does is totally confidential, so we cannot share which employers we work with, which helps build the partnership between the employers and our consultants.
Great, thanks. And if you didn't see, that link for the application was dropped in the chat for those of you watching. Thanks, Brad. Moving on again, Brad, how can small businesses in Wyoming take advantage of your safety programs, especially if they have limited budgets and limited staff?
You know, that truly is the benefit of the consultation program for Wyoming, is that everything that we do is totally free. So that way your company can actually take advantage of the services that we can provide to provide a safe and healthy work environment for any business, not only the new businesses, but also the older businesses.
Good, thank you, Brad. So are there grants or funding opportunities available for employers looking to improve their workplace safety? Brad, you want to take that first?
Yeah, definitely. The consultation discount program is available to all employees and their employers to conduct a visit with OSHA consultation. Your business automatically qualifies for a 3% discount, and based on the evaluation conducted during the visit, your company may qualify for up to 10% off your workers' comp EMR rate.
Good, thank you. Rico?
Thanks, Jason. So another safety-related resource is the Safety Improvement Fund, and that link will be provided in the chat shortly. Every fiscal year, businesses in good standing with workers' compensation and unemployment can apply for up to $10,000 on equipment or training that exceeds the OSHA or MSHA minimum standards. Also, there is a required 10% monetary match that is needed as well. But overall, it seems like there are some employers that apply frequently, but we also have some newer employers that apply for non-allowable items or items that don't meet those standards. So that leads to denied applications. So there are rules and regulations that do provide a list of non-allowable items, and that should be on that link if you scroll around in that page there. But if you work with a workers' comp safety and risk safety specialist or with an OSHA consultant, they can provide guidance on equipment or training that does exceed those minimum standards.
Great, thank you, Rico. Okay, next question, Brad. What are some of the most valuable but often overlooked free consultation services offered through your programs?
Thanks, Jason. The fact that employers actually pay for services that we can do for free, I believe, is the most overlooked component of OSHA consultation. We can conduct noise monitoring as well as air monitoring for any chemicals that your company may work with.
Good, thank you. Brad, can employers request mock inspections or safety audits? And what can they expect from that process?
And Jason, I'd like to jump in on that. This is
Sure.
Christian. So with mock inspections, no, OSHA does not provide mock inspections. Instead, what we offer is a no-cost confidential on-site consultation program that's going to identify your workplace hazards and provide expert advice for improvement. So for mock inspections, businesses can contact a private third-party safety consultant who specializes in those services and has the expertise in OSHA standards.
Good, thank you. What happens after a consultation visit? Is there any follow-up or continued support provided, Brad?
Definitely. After a visit is conducted, the employer receives a formal written report describing what hazards were identified during the visit. We work closely with the employer to assist them in abating the hazards. And once all the hazards are abated, we will send a formal closing letter, letting them know that their case file has been closed. We are a resource for them anytime they have any questions or need assistance.
Great. How does your team approach helping small businesses that may not have a dedicated safety person, Brad?
You know, there are so many small businesses in Wyoming that do not have a safety person. The good thing is we can provide those services year round. We can conduct a visit one time at their site location. If they have multiple sites, we can go to every one of their sites and conduct a visit. And they can definitely call us 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to assist them with any questions they may have.
Awesome, thank you. Next question, where can employers get help in completing their OSHA 300 logs, and where can they get a lost run report? Brad, you want to take that one?
Definitely, our consultants can run their lost run report, and additional resources that are available to employers are on the OSHA.gov website, but there are many resources to assist employers on OSHA 300 as to what may be a recordable and what might not be a recordable. You can also contact any of our consultants with specific questions. And if we do not have an answer, one of the things that we will do is make sure we find one for you and respond to your questions accordingly.
Great information. Thanks, Brad.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay, now moving on into our mine safety section. Deputy Mine Inspector Don Dorn, this one's for you. What are the key safety challenges unique to the mining industry in Wyoming?
Thank you, Jason. Good morning to everybody. Some of the challenges that we run up against is a lot of our mines are in really remote locations, which, they'll also have unpredictable weather. A lot of smaller operations may not have the resources that larger operations have, as far as safety and inspection goes. But those are most of the challenges that are pretty close to what we have statewide.
Good, thanks, Don. How is how's the State Mine Inspector Office working with mine operators to address these challenges and improve compliance?
Well, by statute, we're required to be at each site twice a year minimum, sometimes more depending on the situation. But we also have an open door policy where they can contact us to come help do an inspection, and we'll address whatever concerns they have. We're very fortunate that when other operators have found solutions to safety solutions, we ask permission if we can use that information to pass on to others, and we're allowed to do that probably about 99% of the time to help the smaller operators address that. We also have safety shares that coincide with everything from, coming up with a solution to guarding or coming up to a solution with some of the behaviors that some people have. Some operations are small mining operations that are affiliated with a ranch. So what you might be doing on a ranch operation is not allowed to be on a mine site. So there's a lot of education that we do saying, hey, you can't do that. I know you do it on your ranch, but you can't do it on this mine site. So we help them and guide them through those problems.
Very helpful. Thanks, Don. Also, how does your Office of the Wyoming Mine Inspector differ from what the Mine Safety and Health Administration, or MSHA, does in the state?
MSHA has a punitive approach to safety. When they go on site, there's usually a dollar amount to every violation they write. We come out and we just want them to fix the problem. We give them a minimum time to anywhere between 5 to 7 days, depending on the problem. We'll also require updates. We don't come in and cite them unless it reaches a point that we have to. We do have police powers, but we rarely never have to use those. MSHA has created an environment where the operators and mine operators are sometimes afraid to have them come on site because they will get a citation that has a dollar. They can call us and we'll help, and we'll try to come to a solution to a lot of those problems and try to guide them as much as we can with the resources that we have. But yeah, a little night and day difference on what we do. They're not afraid to call us. We have a better partnership with a lot of the mine operators because of those 2 visits a year. Sometimes we'll visit a site 3 or 4 times. Just depends on if we're in the area. MSHA doesn't always have a mining experience qualification. Our minimum requirement to have this job is 10 years of mining experience. So with the 6 mining operators that we have in our office, we have well over 100 years of mining experience that we can share with every operator across the state.
Awesome. Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. All right, moving into our next section, which is risk management and workers' compensation, safety and risk. Adam Powell, who leads that group, can you explain what workers' compensation, safety and risk is and what services you provide, Adam?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, most definitely. So workers' compensation, safety and risk, also known as WICSR, the services that we provide comprehensive and or limited services, which are on-site type visits. We provide assistance with the development and review of companies' site-specific safety and health hazards, programs, and policies. Training and presentations offered to clients. Provide information on workers' compensation, safety, and health discounts, apply assistance, and help with the application process of those. Safety team committee development and enhancement, safety management education, behavioral-based safety training, along with ergonomic evaluation assessments. Our comprehensive visits detail evaluation of physical and environmental hazards per OSHA standards, safety and health program and policy examination, review and development. And our limited visits are more focused on specific safety or health concerns.
Good, thank you, Adam. Rico, this one's for you. Are there any financial incentives or premium discounts available for businesses that proactively manage safety?
Most definitely. So we offer 4 discount programs that can lower our base rate up to 80%. And the link will be provided in the chat where you can find all of the applications for those discounts. And the first discount is a safety discount program where you can save up to 10%. But what it requires is a health and safety policy with a designated health and safety coordinator with documented monthly safety meetings. So that's to get the 10% level. Whereas the drug and alcohol discount program offers a flat 10% because everyone's doing the same thing. But you need to have a drug and alcohol policy along with meeting the educational requirements of 1 hour for employees and 2 hours for supervisors. And the other component too is that there has to be 100% pre-employment testing and 20% random annual testing. I do see a question in there. So the base rate as discounts are applied only to the base rate, not to an EMR. So that is what is always discounted because the EMR, even though it has modification in the name, it's not modifiable except by the claims experience, which changes in that 3-year window. So with that, the next discount, the largest savings is the deductible program, which can be as high as 50%, which depends on the size of your company. With this discount, it depends, nothing really changes on how claims are managed, but it does provide employers who have a higher risk appetite an opportunity to reduce their premiums. We do conduct a deductible program analysis to see if it is beneficial, to see if you would experience more savings than reimbursing workers' comp. But it depends on the program level that you decide to enroll in. With this program, however, it does need to be in line with your policy year. So open enrollment does end at the end of this month. So if you do have questions about whether this is the right program for you, if it's a good fit, please reach out to us, which the email address for our shared inbox will be provided there for questions regarding that or anything else that I mentioned today for our risk management team. Now, the last discount everyone's kind of touched on quite a bit is that health and safety consultation discount. So this discount goes up to 10%, which depends on the level determined by that OSHA consultant, the mine inspector, or with that workers' comp safety and risk safety specialist. Or you can also work with a third-party OSHA-approved consultant, but that might cost you some money. Now, every discount is good for 1 year, except for that consultation discount, which is good for 3 years. And that wraps up every discount that we offer here. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Rico. So it's essentially basically somebody can get up to 30% discount on their base rate. That's good information. Thanks, Rico. Rico, also next question. What are some underutilized risk management tools that Wyoming employers should consider?
Yeah, so one underutilized tool that I found is that not enough employers know about that PEERS website, which PEERS stands for the Provider Injured Worker Employer Resource System. It is used to find claim information, billing status, payment, and also benefit information. In PEERS, employers can run loss run reports, which are a great way to track claims, whether it's demographic information or costs to analyze for risk management solutions. And you can reach out to the PEERS email address, which will be provided in the chat there, for questions on how to gain entry for that if someone else within your company previously had it, if you're locked out, or if you're just trying to sign up for the first time. And another resource is the risk management team can produce letters for employers who historically have had a good EMR that's below a 1. But then, of course, then there's some tragedy or multiple claims that are high dollar that might increase that EMR. So we can write a letter that explains that the EMR historically has been good for employers, so that way it can help them compete for any job bids or anything like that, to explain that they are just going to have a high EMR for this year or for the next couple of years. We also provide letters for employers who are sole proprietors, so that way we can explain that they wouldn't have an EMR. Same with employers who they don't have an extra hazardous occupation, so they won't have an EMR either if they don't have workers' comp coverage. And then the last letter we could provide is for employers within the first couple years of their policy holding here with workers' comp. We can write an EMR letter of 1.0. So saying that for the first couple years, there isn't an EMR notice generated because you don't have enough claims experience. So we can write a letter explaining that for those first couple years, you just have an implied EMR of that 1. So that way we can explain that if you are, again, competing for a job bid or whatever, whoever needs to know that information.
Great, thanks, Rico. Can you share an example of a successful risk mitigation strategy you've seen in a high-risk industry, Rico?
Yeah, so I recently worked with a company that primarily employs general maintenance workers. Now, they didn't have a surefire solution for the hazard of snow removal, and that's where a couple of their severe claims came from, right? So solutions varied from, considering to contracting out the risk of that removal to another company. And we also looked at seeing if that would outweigh, the cost of what it would look like if those severe claims did occur. So that way they're not paying a bunch for this, contracting out versus what their increased premiums might look like. And we also looked at, PPE type of solutions like with snow cleats and whatnot. But the best solution that we found actually was to promote light duty through workers' compensation to reduce the financial impact of that claim or whatever claim they happen to have in the future on their policy. So most of the time, what we find is that strains and sprains, the recovery time from that can take weeks to months, kind of varies. But so by reducing that impact of the indemnity cost to that claim, The light duty is the best solution because we found that within just one claim alone, the employer would have a reduction of $10,000, at least within a 3-month recovery time frame. Whereas, the medical isn't as high. It's just a recovery for those types of injuries. Now, we do find that light duty is a win-win for everyone, just because it generally leads to employee retention, but it also reduces the financial impact of future premium costs by making those indemnity benefits non-chargeable to the employer.
Great information. Thanks, Rico. Next question, Rico. What role does data, excuse me, one second. What role does data or incident analysis play in shaping risk management strategies?
Yeah, so first off, you need to identify and assess the problem before you can solve it. So reviewing claims data is something that we do, and we can help identify any hazards to address, whether that's through personal protective equipment or PPE, any administrative controls within your policies and procedures, any engineered controls, or if we can substitute the hazard or eliminate it entirely. We can provide that data trending, so through an RMA, so that we can, again, brainstorm solutions to help you reduce the frequency and severity of those accidents within the workplace. The nice part about this data too is it can always be reviewed later with current data to assess whether or not those risk management strategies were effective.
Good, thank you. And I don't remember, but RMA was risk management analysis, if we didn't already mention that, right?
Thank you, Jason, for backing me up there.
We get caught up in our own acronyms. Thank you, Rico. Good information. Let's see, moving on to some common misconceptions and barriers here. So, Adam, what are some common misconceptions that employers or employees have about your programs or services?
One of the things that we find from the Wixer division is, kind of going along with what Brad spoke earlier in the presentation, is the no-cost service. There's absolutely no cost associated with the Wixer program or the OSHA consultation program. They're services that we set forth for educational purposes. And both of our programs are basically voluntary participation. We are trying to provide education into the workforce to help mitigate risks, to improve health and safety within the workplace. So we're designed to inform and guide and enhance employee safety practices. And our true mission is to cultivate a proactive safety culture in the workplace.
Yeah. Adam, how can leaders promote a culture of safety without creating fear or discouraging reporting?
I think that's a good question because I think it's an underlying apprehensive fear that people have, or a little bit of a tangent there. But the Wixer Group, we focus on development and implementation of cultural safety awareness, and we do that through two aspects. And first aspect is safety management education. And the second aspect is behavioral-based safety training. So we try to provide those tools to employers and employees to not only acknowledge what safety aspects affect them personally, but also how it affects their organization that they work within.
Great, thanks, Adam. Okay, let's see, some trends and impact and industry insight. Christian, this one's for you. What are the most common workplace safety risks you see across industries in Wyoming, and how are businesses addressing them?
Thank you, Jason. So the most common workplace safety risk have been identified as involving falls, support activities, health, to include most recently COVID, trenching, and excavation. So with oil and gas support services, hazards can occur during times of a slowdown or startup processes, and do include sometimes faulty equipment. Falls that have been identified from height can sometimes encompass excellent weather. So everything may look fine, but we may be missing a few things where it comes to making sure that we're tied in when we're on a roof, making sure we have all equipment and PPE while we're out on the roof are some common issues that we have. Um, Also, the non-use of fall protection sometimes is a result of complacency. So it's a task that is done day in and day out, and so frequently. I mean, and a good example is we just had a hailstorm come through Cheyenne here the past few weeks, and that causes immediate reaction to get services done to roof, if it's a repair, if it's a total replacement, siding. So those jobs move pretty quickly because there's a lot to get to here in Cheyenne locally. So doing those tasks over and over again, going to lunch, coming back, sometimes it's an issue of making sure that you do your checks to put on all of your fall protection and all the components that go along with that that are necessary to make sure there are no hazards. Also, trenching and excavation incidents are also common, and with those and falls, since those seem to be the most common, national emphasis programs have been developed to make sure that we focus on those if we see those while we're out and about, to make sure we can protect the employees as soon as we can if we see them, if we see a hazard. Now, sometimes with trenching and excavation, if we just see work taking place and we don't see a hazard, sometimes we do stop and talk to the employer and have a conversation with them about what's actually happening on the job site. If they need anything, if they're looking for any types of training. But those are common and they have not seemed to have fallen off of being identified as high hazard industries when it comes to falls and trenching. So what employers are doing in the meantime to make sure that they combat these situations is once we complete an investigation with an employer, they go back and they complete the abatement in the form of correcting the hazard based on what's been identified during that investigation. They do a really good job from our eyes of making sure that if it's been identified, they go back, they train their employees on what they're supposed to do, even if it's a tune-up for people who do know and they may have missed a few things to make sure that they're in line with the safety standards. They make sure that all of equipment is in place and follow up that way. They provide us with that information to let us know that the hazard's been corrected. And we move on and we look for more hazards and try to get things identified to make sure we're taking care of the employees here in the state.
Very good, thank you.
Mhm.
Brad, anything to add? Wasn't sure if maybe you had something to add there. All right, let's move on here. So, Adam.
Sorry about
how
that,
do we-
Jason.
What's that? Sorry.
I was talking and I didn't have it off mute.
Oh, sorry.
My
Go ahead, Brad.
apologies. Some of the things that we've seen, and I definitely want to appreciate Christian touching on fall protection. When we are driving out in the field and if we see workers up on the roof without fall protection, we consider that an imminent danger. So we will stop and conduct a visit, get the employees down off the roof and talk with the supervisors to make sure they know how to wear proper fall protection. Some of the other things that we see out in the field is forklifts, a lot of training on forklifts, electrical issues, hearing protection, welding, chemical exposure, caught in between incidents. There was a national emphasis program on heat exposure, but as we get into the winter here, mostly what we see in Wyoming is mostly a cold exposure. Employees being out in the cold and having a hard time working out in that temperature, especially in the oil and gas field.
Great, thanks, Brad. Adam, next question here is for you. How has the approach to workplace safety evolved in recent years, especially in high-risk industries like construction, energy, and agriculture?
Well, one thing that we've noticed with a lot of our industries that we work within, and I'll touch probably strongly on construction because it's easy to speak to, but is direct and indirect cost associated with injuries in the workplace. I think the direct costs are pretty easy to acknowledge and be aware of, but what we've seen is folks are really starting to drill down and have a strong interest in the indirect cost of those injuries and how it affects the workplace and the environment. So when we talk about those indirect costs, what Wixer will do is we come in and we'll do a direct and indirect cost analysis, and we'll talk about things like institutional knowledge. And to kind of put this in perspective, when we talk about institutional knowledge, we're talking about our senior level people, the folks that are in our institutions or in our industries that have many, many years of experience, know-how, ability, those sorts of things. So when those people are disconnected from the workforce due to an injury, how does that affect our workplace? the productivity, the safety aspect, those sorts of things. So we talk about institutional knowledge, productivity, guidance, and social aspects. So, when we talk about the senior level people, the social aspects of that, the other employees in the workplace, how does that affect them along with safety and productivity? And then the person themselves, the literature's out there that proves the longer a person's out of the work environment due to an injury, the harder it is for them to re-engage or to come back into the workforce. So the mental health of that, how does that affect that individual? And that's why workers' compensation has always been proactive at trying to put people back into the workforce as quickly as possible. It's just it's the healthy, conscientious thing to do. So we talk about that. We'll cover loss run analysis, where we'll go through and we'll look for trends. We'll associate patterns, assess risk, and then also provide mitigation avenues for those risks. So we help you work through those things. And what does that mean at the end of the day? And how can we meet our goals? So we provide that assistance. We evaluate EMR ratings. And what do those look like for you? How does it affect your workers' comp premium cost? How can we start to work those or dwindle those down to where it's basically, costing you less to conduct business? And then we talk about retaining and acquiring work. I think that we live in a different work environment today. We're not so localized anymore. There's a lot of competition out there. So when we talk about construction or oil and gas industries, we're seeing folks that have high EMR or injury rates being excluded from bid processes. They can't acquire work. There's outside entities that have better numbers that are gaining that local work. So we talk about all of these and how it links back to safety and how safety can drive productivity and how safety can help mitigate some of these challenges that folks are seeing in the field.
Yeah, great information. Thanks, Adam, for that explanation. Adam, have you seen any data or trends that suggest a reduction in workplace accidents due to increased use of our safety programs?
Most definitely. So we track the data and try to see what trends or what patterns we have over the course of time. And what we've seen is there's a direct correlation or a strong correlation that working with our WICSR services is directly lowering injury rates. And we contribute that back to that societal or behavioral based training. We're trying to make a cultural shift within the workplace. So by doing that, the tools that people are gaining and the knowledge that's being applied into the workforce, it's directly having a cause effect with lower injury rates, which is improving safety, it's improving the environment of workers, and also mitigating some of those expenses.
Great. Thanks, Adam. All right, kind of moving forward here. Technology and innovation, and I'll throw this out here. How do you feel technology or innovation will be used to improve workplace safety in the future and services provided by our agency? Adam, you want to take that first?
I will. So I think this is really a good discussion. I think we are kind of evolving into some uncharted territory when we talk about technology in the workplace. So AI advancements is at the top of the list, obviously. It's affecting our day-to-day interactions, it's affecting our lives, and it's definitely making a direct impact within our work environment. So much so, this morning when I read the Cowboy State Daily, I saw there was an article in there where a Casper startup company is creating an AI roughneck situation to help fill the voids in the oil and gas field from retirements. So linking back to that institutional knowledge, we're losing those senior folks out of our workforce. And how does that look? And how is AI going to try to fill that gap? I think there's strong suggestion that's going to be a profitable situation. It's going to institute a lot of different changes. But we live in a different work environment today. Years ago, you started a career, you started from the bottom, you worked your way up, and over the years, you gain knowledge and skills and attributes to contribute to your industry or your environment. But today we see folks are 2 to 5 years in a cyclical situation of changing careers. So we're losing that foundational knowledge. And I think AI is going to try to fill that gap in some way. So I think we're seeing that. We're seeing societal shifts in how work is being conducted and viewed. And I think an easy way to talk about this is remote work. I think there was a point where that was a huge perk. I think there is a large volume of employees out there that now look at remote work when it's applicable as not a perk, but as a requirement. And I think we're seeing that in the workplaces. And then tying that all back into how does safety relate to these sorts of things? I think people in today's society, I think they demand safe and healthy work environments. I think it was easier years ago to have unsafe environments, but I think folks today, with education and our world's a smaller place. I think they have larger requirements. I think they have demands, and I think this all kind of ties into this. So this is really a good discussion, and I think it's an open discussion. I know that one thing that we're doing as a Wixer group is it might be a lofty goal, but this is what we want to do this year. This is what we're working on is we want to provide online training to folks within the state of Wyoming. So we envision an AI type of program to where people can log in, they can choose trainings and guidance that they need and facilitate that on their needs, on their workforce schedule. There's a lot of reasons to try to institute this. One being it's hard to schedule, to have us come out sometimes and work within the employer's schedule to provide training, let's say. Another is we live in the state of Wyoming. So, we have a good portion of our year that weather affects our travel. And then you just have, situational things. Like if you're a construction company and you have a day that you're weathered out of work, but you want to keep people on the payroll, you want to keep your folks engaged. This is a great opportunity to have a training day. And it can be kind of a preemptive, prompted type of situation. So, I think there's a lot of opportunities. I think there's a lot of growth that'll happen. But, that old saying that there's always going to be education, there's always going to be a school, but not necessarily a schoolhouse. I think we have to look at how work is being conducted and that environment and how it's changing. So,
Yeah. Yeah, interesting stuff. Thank you, Adam. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
Yeah, this is Christian. Just to piggyback on what Adam's saying, oh yeah, there's so many innovations and AI is helping out a lot with that. You know, when AI was first introduced, besides in the movies and Terminator, where everybody's terrified to hear the word AI, I was a little apprehensive about it too. But I mean, who now doesn't reach for their phone to go and search for something? That's a component of AI. Um, just imagine to be able to reach for your phone or go to your computer, just like Adam saying, for some refresher training that you need, or to answer a question for something that you're looking for. It's a great tool to use to help to get the information that you need. Because what we see is typically um, with OSHA, if there's an incident, it's because of either human error or a lack of knowledge. So if it's something where you're going to start up a piece of equipment you don't remember, there's no manual, you can take 2 seconds to go and search for that information, to brush up on your training to make sure that you're prepared for that. Also, just the resource with the technology, like Adam said, what we're doing right now is testing some AI resources to use internally with training our compliance officers to help support us first before we move to actually put that out to the public to help train. We want to make sure we kick that around a little bit too, to challenge it, to make sure that we have the answers that we want before we move forward with that. But it is a great resource. And before in its fledgling states, when you try to use AI, it was a little slow and came back with some unreliable answers, but AI is what you put into it. So when you have people around the world putting that information in and it's correct information, it's a great resource to draw from. So we are supporting that very heavily here going forward in the future. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys. I think now we're getting about here, 15 minutes left in the webinar. Maybe time for some questions, Aaron?
Yes, we are ready for some questions, and we do have some. Switch the slide over here. There we go. Here we have some contact information for these guys. We've got OSHA, Risk Management, Workers' Compensation Safety and Risk, and the State Mine Inspector's Office. And now we will go to questions. The first question is, looks like it's for Rico. Where are the discounts already being applied to my company found?
Yeah, sure thing. So if you go to that peers system that was referenced, you can find your final rate notice. And on your final rate notice is where you can find all the discounts that are being applied. And every time we apply a discount, a final rate notice is generated the next business day. And then on top of that, if there's always a final rate notice that's issued when a policy is just created. So there's going to be a bunch of confusion come November once those new policies are created. If you do have a discount that's overlapping to the next policy year, do not fret. There will be another final rate notice issued. And if you do have questions, again, reach out to my team. We're happy to look into that.
Okay, thank you. This might be for Adam, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Is there any free trainings for safety officers?
In the workforce, sure. Yeah. I mean, we offer a lot of different types of trainings, from managerial type trainings all the way down to, industrial ergonomic facilitation training. So most definitely, Wixer and OSHA consultation both provide extensive training. So between the two groups, yeah, I most definitely would say that pretty much any type of training you would need related to health and safety in the workplace can be provided.
Very good. That's wonderful. Okay, this next question. Are there any programs to help with CDL training? I'm thinking this might be a question for our workforce centers. So for that, we would recommend reaching out to our workforce centers. We have 18 around the state. If you go to dws.wyo.gov/WFC for Workforce Center, that'll take you straight to the listing of all of our workforce training centers, and you can reach out to somebody there and they will be able to help you with that.
And there are some resources that are available to employers and their employees. I know Climb Wyoming does a really good job training individuals in truck driving and CDL training. A lot of the community college offer trainings that are funded through grants. And every now and then you can go to their technical training sites and they will actually be looking for students to jump into those free classes. So I know those are a couple resources. And then DWS has the DADS program, which is phenomenal, free training along with counseling. So those are a couple resources that our agency provides, but also is provided by federal grants.
Wonderful. And I bet that the workforce centers can point you in the right direction if you have any questions about any of those things. Especially dads and probably Climb as well. They can point you in the right direction. So our next question, and it looks like this is going to be our last question unless there are others. So feel free to shoot more questions in if you have any. As nuclear expands in Wyoming, what resources are there for nuclear energy and handling?
So this is Christian. So with that, the entity that would actually handle that would be the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, so NRC, and that's federal. Also, the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ, would have jurisdiction over that. So those are entities that handle those, and we know that that's starting to grow mostly towards the west side of the state. So I'd like to offer that information up.
Thank you. Okay, another question. Why would somebody's EMR go up if there have not been any claims?
Thanks, Aaron. So the EMR, there's a multitude of reasons, and that's one of the things that we can look at as risk management. There are times where the actuary might be adjusting, what's going on within the industry based on what's going on, not just with your company, but everyone else within that job code. But if you do want an EMR analysis, that's something we can take a look at and run projections as well. But if you want a question as to why it went up, we can look into that.
Okay. All right, I am not seeing any other questions coming through. With that, I want to take a moment to thank our panelists. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing your expertise and insights today. And thank you very much to our moderator, Jason Wolf, for guiding the discussion. Also, we want to thank all of you for joining us today and for the work you're doing every day to keep Wyoming's workplaces safe. We hope you leave today with ideas, resources, and tools you can put into action. And again, on the screen here are our phone numbers for these gentlemen. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you to take a survey on today's presentation. Your input helps us make these sessions even better, so we really appreciate your thoughts. Somebody's going to throw those into chat right now. We will also email you a link to the recording and the slides along with this survey in the next few days. And while you're completing the survey, we're going to post another link. Oops, I got a little behind here. Another link which will allow you to register for our next presentation. And next month's virtual training series is with our Labor Standards Department called Workforce Rules for the Season. W-2 versus 1099 and other employer must knows. So go ahead and register for that. It's timely for the holiday season. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we will see you in December. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.